Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host. Another great show for you this evening. I'm really looking forward to it. Wearing a Hawaiian shirt. I never usually wear one. It's just beautiful weather here in South Carolina, so I thought I'd wear my Hawaiian shirt today. Just a couple of things. First of all, I just want to get something over with that's kind of like the elephant in the room because I'm just getting so many emails about it and everything. And that is this right here. Lou Elizondo with this picture they showed at the briefing the other day, which I ran the live stream on my show. Perhaps that's why I'm getting as many emails. So there's a lot of controversy about this. And that is, people saying, well, I don't understand why he came out with this without vetting it more. He has tried to explain that on a clip that he ran the other day. I think it's unfortunate. However, it's also, there are some conspiracies kicking up because someone debunked this, or I don't want to say debunked it. What do I want to say? They found the exact image very quickly after. And so people are speculating, how did they find it so quickly? Was Lou Elizondo set up? Regardless, either way, he should have thought about it a little, I think, before he presented that. And because there's no urgency to show images like this. He said he did it because he was making a point about, aviation and people seeing these things and where to report them, things like that. Regardless, I think, if I had a one-on-one conversation with him, I'd say, perhaps you should not do this. People are relying on you for really good information. And, just be more careful. This is not the first time. I think it's the third time. It's at least the second time. So, I don't know how many times we can forgive these type of things and believe in the rest of the whole thing. So, anyway, I just thought I'd address that. Now I'm done. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But anyway, that's kind of my take on it. I wish it didn't happen, but it did. Another thing coming up soon, I'm going to be out at Contact in the Desert, and that's May 29th through June 2nd, coming right up. If you're going to be there, email me at martin@podcastufo.com. I do have a media room I'm going to be doing recording in. Some people are welcome to join if they'd like to. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to that. First time I've never made it out there, and I just want to see what it's like. It's kind of like a rock concert on UFOs. So I'm going to be excited to see what that's about. Our blog this week from Charles Lear, who is also next week's guest, is Night of Saucers in our 10 Argentina, 1963. And a lot of it had to do with what happened there. It was kind of influenced Steven Spielberg a little bit on that particular case, the way the so-called saucers were interacting with vehicles and things like that. So check that blog out over at podcastufo.com. I want to thank everyone that supports the show. Anyone can do that for just a few dollars a month, and you can get an ad-free audio podcast. Also, people say, well, how can I, watch YouTube ad-free? Well, two ways you can do that. You can get YouTube Premium, which I have, which means I can watch anything without ads. Secondly, you can watch live. And I want to also thank everyone that watches the show live. We have some great people in that are usually making wonderful questions and comments. And so just do not go political. That's all I tell you. We don't like anything to do with politics on the show. So just keep it in the topic and be nice to each other. That's all for staying in the chat. And anyway, I do thank you all for being here. And now it's time for our guests. And we got Anthony and Ryan. Both of you, welcome.
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. Good. Anthony, you have a brand new nephew. So luckily you made it. We were wondering if you're going to be here, but glad you made it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for having us.
Yeah, you bet. So you two have written a book. So you hold that up again, Ryan. So yeah, UFOs, who knows? So we're not going to be talking all about the book, but I do want to ask you, how did you two decide to get together? I want to ask you, both of you, how you had interest in this topic, but how did you two find each other and how did this happen?
Well, I had started this book, UFOs Who Knows, back in 2009. Um, and, life and kids got in the way and sort of it went in the drawer for 10 plus years, well, more than that, until I decided to pull it back out and update it and decided that I was talking to Anthony on podcast and concluded that let's do this together. Why not?
Yeah.
And add a lot more quotations to the book because it's a book of famous quotations, 185 quotations from astronauts, celebrities, government, presidents, religious leaders, and so forth. So that we just decided, hey, let's just do it. I mean, I'm more an action rather than pedigree.
Awesome. And you mentioned astronauts, and I think that is such an important segment of people that have, talked about UFOs because, if you talk to someone like Seth Shostak from SETI, I remember him saying to me, basically, oh, what are these witnesses? These witnesses, they're, why are they any better than anyone else? Well, I totally disagree with that. For one, astronauts, and I did have a conversation years ago. I was just talking about this with Alan Bean, fourth man on the moon, but he was also involved in the great Skylab 1970s UFO case. And when I asked him if he would be on the show to talk about it, he declined. He's a very nice guy, but he declined. I did not want to talk about it. But interesting. So I want to start with you, Anthony. I know we just talked about where you live. You're not that far from Pine Bush. Hopefully, I'll get to meet you when I'm up there on June 7th. But so I should tell, besides Contact in the Desert, I'm also going to be at Pine Bush on June 7th. And you may be right there. So what was your interest in UFOs? How did you get started in that topic?
Yeah, I've always been curious about everything, but funny enough, I never really got into UFOs maybe until about 2020. And I just kind of stumbled upon what was happening with the government. And then I kind of saw that there was a hearing coming up, and I started to look more into it. And that's when I just started studying it a lot. And I spent a couple years, just 95% of my reading was just on UFOs and many books about it. So that's how I got into it. And I feel like I've gotten pretty decently up to speed. You guys have been in this field for a long time, so I have a lot of respect for that. But I'm happy to, discuss the topic. It's fascinating to me.
Well, I agree. And I'm kind of a quick study myself because I really dove into it. And I had a sighting back in 2007. So before that time, I never really was looking into this topic at all. And 2011 is when I launched this particular show. And it's still such a mystery. But I love hearing about new cases and all the time. And it's fascinating. And Ryan, what about yourself?
Well, I mean, I've been in this for a long, long time because my father was very much involved in work on anti-gravity at Douglas Aircraft Company and then McDonnell Douglas. And so as, a 15, 16-year-old, Stanton Friedman came home to dinner and I got exposed to it. I sort of ignored it until the early 90s. And my father and I started working on the Majestic documents. And so I'm now the heir apparent / expert on everything Majestic 12 and crash retrievals, which is what my seminal book on UFO crash retrievals is about, Magic Eyes Only. So it's been like 35 years of exposure at conferences and MUFONs and running my own crash retrieval conferences and interest in this sort of vertical section of MJ12 documents and crashes. I look at all the other stuff too, but that's not my specialty. So there's a longer story there, but I'll let it go.
Well, I've had the MJ12 documents are controversial. You have to admit that.
I don't think they're controversial, but I welcome any criticisms and happy to discuss them.
Okay, well, let's just talk quickly about the signature I don't want to call it an auto pen signature, but it was of Eisenhower. That signature is you know, I mean, could have, we don't
You
see
mean
the
Truman?
originals. The problem is, and you can't deny this, we do not have the originals, and that is a problem.
Well, not in all cases, but in the case of the Bowen manuscript, the Encyclopedia of Flying Saucers, we have the complete originals, and it's the highest classification of this document is top secret magic, and the whole Air Force chapter is stamped top secret magic. It's original. We have the color twining memo from the National Archives. We got lots of original documents. Not all of it's original, but many is original. Many of it's done forensics. But I can go on and on about the authenticity of the issue. It just depends on which document we're talking about.
Well, let's just say in particular, the MJ-12 documents that were released way back in when that all came out, Bill Moore, Chandray, all that.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any original documents? That's the question I have for the MJ-12 documents that were released then. Are they were photographs of documents or something like that? But I mean, do we have any originals?
The answer is the MJ-12 documents are some 3,500 pages across 7 different sources spanning some 19 years. And the first document, which you're referring to, the one to Jamie Chandray, an LA producer, was undeveloped Tri-X film. And it's undergone lots of debate and discussion from Stanton Friedman, and books have been written about it. But yes, there's no originals. It was film. But that doesn't mean that it's not legitimate. It just means that that one doesn't have originals. It's the preponderance and the whole swath of evidence that I look at and step back from and say, oh, there's so much smoke here. There's tons of fire as well.
But let me just put it another way too. Are there any original documents that you have seen and handled that have the same names of the Majestic 12, or anything that corroborates the rest of the documents that were released?
Oh, yeah. It's all discussed in multiple books. Alien Viruses by my father, Encyclopedia of Flying Saucers, Magic Eyes Only. There's the burned memos have some names in it. The Encyclopedia of Flying Saucers says Vannevar Bush's handwriting in it. There's lots of evidence to corroborate the names. There's on the majesticdocuments.com website, there's a giant list of personnel, an Excel file you can download. It's got 80 different names and their linkages to various documents, and cross references for political and military and so forth. So the data is there. You just got to look for it.
Okay. I didn't want to make this a big debate about that. It's just, I want you to teach me. And I will tell you this, I was at a friend of mine's has an auction gallery in Massachusetts, and I stopped in there one day and he said, oh, hey, I have this footlocker from an FBI agent that lived in Japan through the 1970s. He says, I want to show you something, because he knew that I was into the UFO topic, and he brings out the Majestic 12 papers, a copy of them. And so I got on the horn immediately with Stanton Friedman. I said, hey, look, I'm in this auction hall, and, and I had a discussion with him, and maybe we don't think it had any other use than perhaps the FBI agent had an interest in UFOs and an interest in the documents. It was, again, just photocopies, very, very, worn out photocopies. But anyway, so anyway, I didn't mean to go a full turn into that, but I wanted to hear from someone, because I've never really heard about any corroboration of any other classified documents that kind of builds it up more, so it makes it more viable. And that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, in general, every document has its own authenticity rating, and there's a certain level of investigation that can be done. And some documents you can't do anything with, others you can do a lot with. And and in general, they're mutually reinforcing of a giant effort to retrieve craft, to understand it, to reverse engineer it, and to keep it all secret from the public. So that theme has not changed at all.
Yeah. So, Anthony, I wanted to talk to you because you're right in the just going a little bit around in different questions here. You're right in the area where there are a lot of UFO sightings in that whole area there. You know, and especially back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, a lot going on in that area. Have you ever seen anything yourself, or have you ever talked to anyone in your area that has seen something unusual in the sky?
Yes, actually, I have. I was just counting the other day because I just had a sighting this weekend, and now
Oh, wow.
I've actually had 8 sightings at this point.
Holy mackerel. Well, let's hear about the latest one. What was it?
Yeah, so I was on my porch and I have these binoculars that are really good, actually. Um, and I relax out there and I'll look at planes in the sky, I'll look at birds in the sky. And I've sort of gotten better at kind of locking onto them. And it gives you a really high definition image in the binoculars there. So I was just hanging out outside. It was a beautiful weather this Saturday. And so, well, we have a lot of black vultures around here. So
Mhm.
I'm familiar with how they look. And I'm just hanging out there for a few hours. And then I see this black, it looked black object just below the clouds was the altitude. And I thought it was one of those black vultures again. So I was just looking at it to wait until I could identify it as one of those vultures. But I didn't see that. And then I saw a really shiny glimmer come off of the object from the sunlight, it seemed. And that's when I just said, all right, what is this? Grab the binoculars. And this was a really strange sighting. All my other sightings are just sort of look like solid objects, black spheres, and something like that.
It's all good.
Sorry.
It's all good here.
Okay. So I lock into this object, and it's appears as a golden colored triangle,
Hmm.
and it's actually hollow on the inside, sort of like how a pool rack looks.
Sure.
It's sort of like that, and it's this golden color, and it flies from right to left in my field of vision. I'm totally zoomed in with the binoculars, and as it's moving, it is morphing, and it's sort of the edges are morphing, and then at one point it really morphs, and it almost becomes this really shiny point of light for a second, and then all of a sudden it turns around, and it's the golden hollow triangle again, and it just sort of hovers there, and it kind of hangs out there. And at that point, I'm totally zoomed in on the binoculars, and at that point, to be honest with you, I kind of got a little bit spooked because I've just never seen anything like this in my life. So I pulled the binoculars down, and I looked up right where my eyes were still exactly in the sky where this was, and it was just completely gone. So that's what I saw like 2 days ago.
And when you said it was completely gone, you mean like disappeared, or do you think you looked away? Are you able? Now we got a problem here with your audio. So please unplug something. I'm going to have to mute you until you take care of that.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to tell you, please unplug your earphones and maybe reset your speaker on that. And then I'll just continue on. Here's a question. I just saw a question that would work for you. Oh, he's gone. Okay. I'm sure he'll be back. Here's a question that you might be able to answer. If you talk to anyone that has spent a career in the IC working with classified docs every day, they can quickly spot classic passage material created by the DIA, including all 3,500 pages. So that's kind of like a statement. That's not really a question.
Yeah, well, let me comment on it.
Okay.
I mean, as somebody who spent maybe a month in the National Archives and presidential libraries looking at historical documents, from the 40s through the 60s, classified, top secret and secret and confidential and so forth in and around this field. I can say that there's all sorts of weirdness that occurs in the documents, typewriting and the formatting and the use and the way things are done, and that people that think that they can quickly identify what's fake or real are naive in that era. I mean, in the modern era, granted, they follow this more rigorous computerized classification process, but back then it was far more herky-jerky and very different.
Oh, okay. Anthony, I suppose you got everything straightened out?
Yes,
Okay.
I don't know what happened there.
All right, that's okay. So here's a follow-up question. Is it not a question? It's another statement. DIA provided the majestic deception package to AFOSI to counter Russian espionage of a sensitive Air Force installations. This person does a lot of deep research. They've recently come into the show, and so they really do a lot of research here.
Richard Doty is no Air Force Office of Special Investigation, is all full of PSYOP issues along with many others. But, I welcome any specific, I don't know if it's credible or not, but any specific objections to any of the documents on majesticdocuments.com website. So if he wants to go there and pick out one or two and say it's fake, because I'm all ears and I'm happy to engage and discuss it.
I don't think they're going in that direction. I think they're just making a few statements. I don't think it's you're challenging whether they're.
It's just like he's pontificating,
It's a she, but that's okay. But anyway,
yeah.
All right. So another a question here with regards to astronaut sightings. The media seems to be in two opposite realities. In one, there's plenty of first-person testimony, while other media reality, there's nothing to it. Any thoughts on that? I mean, there are a lot of astronauts. I think something came out this week about astronauts, not the astronauts themselves, but someone that was doing some type of media with them upon their returns. This person was saying there was a lot of people saying that they had some type of UFO encounter in space. I don't know if you heard that recently.
Yeah, go ahead, Anthony. I mean, fire off a few of our astronaut quotes.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah, love to hear that. Yeah.
Before I answer that, I'm just curious because I cut out there. Did you get to hear what I said about what I saw?
We heard the whole story about what you saw.
Okay.
Yes, the thing.
What do you think? Just like I just didn't get to hear any kind of reaction.
Oh, the reaction to that. I mean, it sounds like a pretty incredible encounter. And the question I had asked you that I guess you didn't hear was, did it disappear or did you see it take off?
Yeah, no, it just totally disappeared. And actually, I was counting yesterday because I was like, you know what? I've seen a decent amount of stuff now, and I had it down to 8 sightings, and 5 of those 8, the same thing happens. That the object just completely, instantly vanishes. It doesn't fly away. So it's crazy. I know people have all different views about what people see, but I know what I saw. I'm not, I'm like a pretty regular person, but yeah, it was nice to share. Thank you for asking about that. It was crazy though. I've never seen anything like that. So
yeah. I mean, that's, if you weren't into the subject before, you would have probably be after that. I mean, that's kind of, what changed my life in this whole thing and made me look into it was my sighting that I had. And what about you, Ryan? Have you ever had any sighting of any kind?
Oh, nothing of note, really. Just some lights near Vandenberg Air Force Base when I was coming back from college. But 1 or 2 minutes watching through binoculars and then disappearing. But the astronauts are really powerful in the Who Knows book. I mean, we have Gordon Cooper and Ed Mitchell and James Irwin and Buzz Aldrin and Story Musgrave and Slayton and Popovich and O'Leary, and they all have different perspectives on the topic. But they're all highly credible people with very powerful careers and backgrounds. And the whole book of UFOs, Who Knows, is focused on credibility, which is the issue that, in my opinion, ufology needs much more of.
Mhm.
So I'll,
Yeah.
feel
No, I
free to-
think I did have the only one in that whole list that I had. I did have Story Musgrave was on this show years ago, and I remember there was something with between him and I mentioned his name earlier, Seth Shostak. Said something like Story Musgrave said he heard aliens in the something fans or something like that. So I remember asking Story about that. What were you talking about that? And it was there was harmonizing in the fans that made him just sound really weird. Nothing to do with aliens, of course. But
I mean, the big quote is Edgar Mitchell saying, yes, there have been ET visitations. Yes, there have been crash craft. There have been materials and bodies recovered. ... And Ed Mitchell has 2 PhDs and 6 men to land on the moon. That's sort of on one end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And Anthony, you can add one to yourself if you want.
Yeah, Gordon Cooper was very outspoken about it, and he said that he said that astronauts are told to keep silent. According to him, he petitioned the UN, as I'm sure you guys know. He saw discs in Germany in 1951. So, he was very outspoken. Edgar Mitchell, as you said, but even Buzz Aldrin, he kind of beat it around the bush a little bit, but he basically did say that they saw a UFO on their way to the moon in the Apollo 11 mission. And then he kind of retracted his statement a little bit, but he's quite a mysterious one.
Right. I agree with that. I know he got into an argument about that with someone when they were trying to get more information. He didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, he just seems like a guy that might have a couple of secrets, but that's just my perception.
Yep. So I don't want to go too far into this, but this person does a lot of research, and I know there is a connection to intelligence through someone that she knows. So there was never a compartmented or special access program known as Majestic. That's a statement, not a question.
Right, I know, but I would clarify. She says Majestic. Fine, it's not Majestic 12. She didn't say that. She didn't say Top Secret Magic, which is in here, or MJ12. So, I mean, parsing the words is important, and there is special compartmental access. There's other documents. There's so little that's been declassified at the National Archives on special compartmentalized information. So I get it. And unfettered access to something that's so secret is, difficult for anybody, even with tickets and access. So I just find that statement to be okay.
Okay. So I'd like to put up the people that do participate in the chat. So when it's a good question, if you'd like to ask a question tonight, just make sure you put it in all caps. That helps me find them. Do you think they use AI to scrub and whitewash UFO information before we even get to see some of what we missed? And you're welcome. He says, thank you. So AI is fairly new, but I mean, it would be a tool, but there are stories about photos being kind of washed out, over the years before we get to see them and stuff like that. So I would just think that that would be a good tool for doing something like that, AI in the future. It's just, it's an opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I suspect that in the past that AI didn't exist. And so that evidence is stronger. But, I don't think the bad guys aren't going to bother with most of this stuff because it's not a big harm. They just sort of ignore it. Don't give it any credibility. And if you're on the inside and you start whistleblowing, you may be fair game for, discrediting. But I don't know. I'm skeptical that they bother to spend any capital on whitewashing with AI.
Yeah. Well, here's something I say a lot, and I just wonder and just get either one of your opinions. And I've run this by a lot of guests that I don't think the government knows everything. I think they know more, but I don't think they know everything. And that is the reason why we're not seeing more information from them, because they can't tell us everything. Opinions on that?
Brian, what do
Anthony?
you think?
Well, I mean, there's lots of compartments and there's lots of layers, and the president doesn't have access to all of it, and the intelligence community doesn't, and David Grush doesn't. He knocked on lots of doors and couldn't get in. So it's very tightly controlled, and the government is not one homogeneous government. There's really scores of governments, and maybe they're not even responsible. Maybe they're proprietary entities inside corporations, or I'm speculating, spun out off-world entities, or outside groups. I mean, we three could form a little private enterprise, and it's nobody knows about it.
Let's do it.
No government oversight. Yeah, it's perfect.
I'll follow that golden triangle next time we retrieve it.
Yeah. So I'll ask you, since you have the sighting, you said it made you a little bit. You were a little bit worried, or you said you were a little scared, perhaps.
Yeah, it was just intense, because I was just really seeing this thing, and then it looked like it kind of faced me a little bit. So I wouldn't say scared. I didn't get a bad energy, but I got a little bit, it was a little intense for me. So
did you think about trying to get a picture of it?
not that time, just because, it's kind of tough to stay locked on the binoculars, and I was just so in the moment.
Yep, I get it.
So no,
Yep.
but I did see, I do have a video of a black sphere in the same area from my porch view. And I saw that, and I had the mindset to get my phone, and I got a video of it, this black sphere going across the sky.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I could send it to you.
Yeah, and I can put that in our show notes for those of you who want to check it out. Just don't forget to send it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's something going on around here, but I'm sort of in between New York City, and then I don't know if there's anything to do with different nuclear plants or West Point or anything. But
yeah,
I've
there's a
seen
lot of talk about that, the Hudson Valley and that whole area. So this is from Chris Alexander, I believe. The accounts, what I'm bewildered about is the cognitive dissonance in the media and the public perception. Isn't that a critical problem? Let's ask an opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It is a critical problem. And that goes to credibility, and goes to the reason why Anthony and I wrote this book, Who Knows, to try to improve our credibility. And I mean, we've got lots of journalists in there, and public figures and celebrities that all talk about their experiences and try to bridge that gap between public dissonance and the public and the media. And the media, the New York Times doesn't publish this stuff because it's not credible, and the credibility is in the eye of the beholder. What's credible to you and I is not credible to a judge in a courtroom. And so that's the standard that the New York Times, the Washington Post, et cetera, says, is that, you need to have the document, the provenance, where'd you get it? You stole it out of the safe, ... And then maybe we'll publish it, provided it doesn't, freak out the lawyers inside the Washington Post and the New York Times. And so, and even, the CIA had Project Mockingbird to try to control the press back in the 50s. And even in some of the Majestic documents, they talk about the need for establishing diplomatic relationships with the press. And, in the UK, for example, they have D notices where you can't publish certain things on national security. And they could easily say it's national security in the UK. Um, and who's to say that there isn't something like that, or isn't relationships at the highest levels of major media organizations? Everybody at 60 Minutes has secret clearances. I mean, because you don't get on aircraft carriers to go do live shows about jets taking off without a secret clearance or better. And so, somebody ought to ask some of these news reporters, hey, do you have secret clearances or top secret clearances? They may not answer truthfully, I don't know. But I'm just giving you informed speculation about things that are logical, that if I was in charge of the bad guys, I would say, absolutely, we need to cut that off. We need to manage that and control that. We need to go all hungry on it, or what Trump is trying to do, and control what the press is learning. And I'm sorry to get sort of fired up about this, but FOIA is so ineffective because the proprietary nature at Lockheed Martin or the Aerospace Corporation or Bechtel or EG&G or Carlyle Group or any of the other people that are doing deep tech reverse engineering, all their data is not subject to any sort of government oversight. It's secret and proprietary, just the way my corporate data is as the CEO of Electric Fusion.
Very interesting. Someone has a question for you, Ryan. Did your father, was he involved with any exotic engineering propulsion efforts while he was at McDonnell Douglas?
Well, that's a great question. The answer is, well, yes and no. Yes, in the fact that the boys in the back room, the boys in the back room, bitter group, definitely had a reverse engineering effort on trying to understand gravity control and physics. They did experiments, they did theoretical work, they tried to gather data about the nature of UFOs. They had, a $5 million budget to do that, but they were given no government ET tech to go reverse engineer. So they had none of that. They were just doing internal, what they call internal IR&D money, research and development money, to go to try to figure out the nature of gravity control, because my father, Dr. Bob Wood, had convinced Don Douglas that Douglas Aircraft Company did not want to be the last person to figure out gravity control, and then Lockheed was working hard on it, and so it was more of a competitive aerospace effort.
Mm-hmm. Here's a interesting question I'm bringing up because this comes up a lot, or has come up a lot in the past. Why do you think they don't ask the Department of Energy what's going on, since they hide a lot of stuff under the Atomic Secrets Act? And the Department of Energy comes up a lot as a possibility of some type of connection when it comes to this topic. And I think it's pretty fascinating.
You want to comment, Anthony?
Well, I think you've probably looked more into that, but I would say that makes sense from what I've seen. And I would just say, in my view, the reason is because, number one, I think whoever it is, and whether it's multiple groups that are kind of keeping the wraps on whatever the underlying facts are and reality of it, they probably have it handled how to kind of control congressional inquiries and the media, as someone else spoke about. So I think it's probably been relatively easy to keep it under wraps. Yes, we have the hearings now and the investigation, but I just think that the people running the investigation, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that they're just not competent enough. I don't know if they're just too busy, or I don't know if they're just compromised, or they're just apathetic. But if I was a Congress member on this task force, I mean, I would be looking into a lot of stuff. To me, I'm a little bit, I don't know why they don't make more progress, to that viewer's question. So that's my view.
Yeah, I would just add that the Atomic Energy Act, I think, happened in 54, 50, 55, 56. And it's very logical and believable that they sort of confiscated it all from the Air Force and and sort of sequestered all the parts and the radioactive and all that technology in the atomic energy and the Q clearances and the Department of Energy, which is very different. The president can't just grant a Q clearance, for example. And I would also say that the biology, the alien bodies, went someplace else. It's not the atomic energy department that has the alien bodies. It's somebody else. It's probably some other organization we've never heard of.
Well, they say if they privatize things, talk about compartmentalizing. If you privatize something, then it's out of the purview of any oversight at all. Here's another question asking for an opinion. Is it fair to think the government is just scared of releasing info about UFO research to not show our hand to adversaries? That's what I think they mean to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that absolutely. This is a classic question, and it's a question that I posed in my other book, The AI Ufologist, which was, why did they keep it secret? How do they manage this transparency versus secrecy? What do they have to hide and lose? And it's a classic question. It's one of the top questions that people have. And when I'm at Contact in the Desert, we're going to have a whole workshop on answering your questions in real time. And this is a perfect sort of question for that forum. Or you can submit it to ufodex.com and get a 1,000-word AI answer, in less than 24 hours.
Yeah. So I want to make a statement. I hope James Fox doesn't get mad at me for saying this, but I had a long conversation with him the other day. He was down in DC at that briefing, and after the briefing, Eric Davis talked, which is kind of rare. You don't really see him talking too much. So he got up and he was talking to both Tim Burchett and Eric Davis. The three of them were talking. This is after the briefing. And so James said, well, why don't you help Eric get, a clearance enough so he can tell you everything that he knows? And they both looked at each other and said, that's not a bad idea. So he said that he thinks they're going to work on that. And that's kind of like, Eric Davis, according to Eric Davis, knows where all the bodies are. He knows a lot of stuff, supposedly. So if that's true, that was pretty smart of James, if he did that and if something will actually happen. And I don't know why no one thought of that before, who's, have looked into what Eric has said in the past.
Yeah. I mean, I spent 3 hours with Eric Davis in Austin like a month ago.
Oh, really? Wow.
One-on-one. He doesn't know everything. He doesn't even, he's in the physics world. He's got some tickets and clearances, and so does Hal Puthoff and so forth. But it's a good idea that Fox and Burchett are trying to do that. But they can't even get, Grush has already testified before them and in private, and they have not been able to get the clearances that Grush has, and the need to know to even get the commentary from Grush.
Yeah, and he says that he has the specific addresses and names, so it's like that simple in my mind.
Yeah, exactly. And the names of the corporations and the people that are cooperative and uncooperative, and so there's lots of room, but what's your need to know, Mr. Congressman? You don't have any. You're just curious. I mean, you want oversight. Okay, fine. We'll give you a budget or something. But what the budget line items are for. You have the budget already all the time. You have the black budget. What all those things are for. It's none of your business. I can argue both sides. And just my commentary about the president is, the president says, tell me about what's the latest with UFOs and Roswell. And they say, well, why do you want to know, Mr. President? Well, I'm worried that we're going to have a national security threat or something like that. And let me reassure you that there's not a threat. We've studied this in detail. And don't you have enough things on your plate that you don't want to, spend time on this? So the IC community has a direct, they don't want more inquiry and disclosure. They're trying to keep them at bay as long as possible.
I remember back in 2016, I had Chris Mellon. I was the first one to interview him actually on this topic. And he said, well, the question came up. I said, okay, so if the president asks the question, what is it with UFOs? Do people have to answer? He said, absolutely. Whoever it is has to answer with what they know. Keyword is what they know. So there's, it's stovepiped into all these, this type of situation.
Well, I might add that there's a tremendous quote in the Majestic documents on one of the front cover pages, and I'll paraphrase it because I can't find it right away. Is that we will disclose the nature of the UFO phenomenon if the president has issued an authorized executive order and there's approval of Majestic Security and Intelligence Command. It's like you need two things to make that happen. And I suspect that there's a bunch of classified law or process that thwarts the president from just saying, okay, well, I'm going to go disclose something. And even if the president was to say that, Roswell's real, etc., he's not going to get very far unless he can show pictures or video or bodies or hatchets or any of that stuff. And the people that control that are going to say, we don't have it. We don't know where it is.
Yeah, they lost it. That's what they usually say. They lost it. Yeah.
Well,
here's another. I remember when this happened. Why did McDonnell Douglas get snubbed by the DoD when they requested crash retrieval material? I remember hearing something about this.
Yeah, I don't remember it, but I guess Don Douglas or the head of Douglas Aircraft Company and McDonald, I think were not. They didn't play ball with a lot of the people that in the know, and this is my speculation from my father, and that they basically were just cut out of that process. And I think they had an opportunity, but they didn't execute it. But now, McDonnell Douglas is part of Boeing, and I think Boeing has some stuff going on. But I'm just speculating. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it seems like it would be in the hands of someone like that for sure. So here's a question. I haven't really brought Jake Barber up much on this show at any given point, and there's also another Matthew Brown, I believe his name is, another whistleblower supposedly has come out and is talking, has to do with the what was that?
Immaculate Constellation.
Yeah, that's it. Immaculate Constellation. Yeah. So interesting. So I don't know if either one of you want to comment on Jake Barber and his work.
Yeah, I just think that the Congress should be talking to him. I think that he should be at the next hearing. I think that he's made claims. He's supposedly been vetted to be this high-level Air Force veteran working on Special Forces project where he was says he was recovering crash UFOs, says he was part of the psionics program or knew people in it. said that he's seen things like anti-gravity technology. He's said that verbatim. So, I mean, if he's really bona fide, which he also said that he's met with the Senate Intelligence Committee. He also said he's working with 2 federal agencies, which he hasn't said what they are yet. If all this is true, I mean, that this guy should have been at that hearing the other day. Not a hearing; it was a briefing or a forum.
Right.
He should be there. He
Yeah.
should be there talking, and
Yeah.
that's what I think.
Now, I've made the last 2 DC hearings, the one that you mentioned, and the one also back in November. I think I even have I have this picture. It's kind of funny of me in the at the last hearing. But there is another hearing coming up May 12th. Unfortunately, I have, and I would go to it. I love to go to these hearings; they're great. But I have a job that's been scheduled for months up in the Cape, at the Cape, so I can't make that one in particular. But anyway, the hearings, I think it's a very positive thing. Is that there's bipartisan, people are taking it serious, and where it'll go from here, I have no idea. I hope it's just not one of these things that is going to get squashed again, and like, oh, this, I mean, because right away when Grush came out, we were talking about that earlier. That article came out about him, and I mean, these things happen. But yeah, I don't know who's going to be at this hearing May 12th, but I would like to know more. If anyone that's listening knows more about it, I've been in touch with Randall Nickerson, who goes to them. We were at the last one together, and so. But if anyone knows more about that, feel free to reach out to me. I'd like to know more about that. So we only have a few more minutes. So I guess I'll ask you, where can people get your book? And go ahead, and let me just ask you this: what would you say is the most compelling part of your book? Either one of you can answer that.
Just the volume of what people have said. There's so many senators, presidents, military generals, and admirals. It's just overwhelming.
Religious leaders, astronauts. Yeah. It's the preponderance of the evidence of, it's like you're in a boxing ring and you get, wow. You get hit right and left constantly with highly credible quotations with very powerful people. And, the big challenges for ufology are credibility, leadership, which, you're trying to do, Martin. You're leading these podcasts and working at it. And we all are trying, and money. And, there's maybe a couple $1 million spent in ufology everywhere, and it needs 50 million or more. I mean, if Congress wanted to blow this open, you get some funding going for a variety of UFO organizations to amplify the evidence. And
yeah, I know NASA spent a whole $100,000 investigating it last year. That's like a lunch. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the big picture. But I would say my final thought is that the great secret that they're holding, that the world is holding and they're protecting with the ultimate effort, is the physics of gravity control. And that is what they figured out, in my opinion, in the late 50s or early 60s, maybe earlier. And that's the secret they're controlling, is that changes the world in every which way you can imagine in time.
I want to just read this really quickly because it kind of sums it up. Someone wrote this on, I can't see exactly where it was, but I sent my mother 5-minute clips of the UAP hearings and the famous UAP videos released by the Pentagon. She wouldn't even watch them. And she's not, it's not that religion is stopping her. It's the genuine lack of intellectual curiosity. It baffles me. The rest of my family just thinks I'm crazy for even talking about this. So the general lack of interest in UAPs is definitely real and a bizarre phenomenon. And I'm amazed humans have been able to advance as far as they have. But anyway, it's kind of funny. It's like, we are the minority that really look into this topic and find it really curious and like a great puzzle. A lot of people just, are busy with their lives and could care less, unfortunately. But anyway, my hats off are to everyone, including you two, that are, trying to make some progress and move forward in this. So I want to thank you both. And the book show your book one more time. You can get that on Amazon or wherever you can buy books.
Yeah.
I would
UFOs,
imagine.
who knows? It's all on
knows?
Amazon.
Yeah, I like the cover picture. That's great. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
All right, so we'll be back next week as always, and our blogger is going to be on the show with a new book also, and that's Charles Lear. So we'll be back next week with Charles Lear. Thank you so much, and Ryan, we'll see you out at Contact.
Great.
All right, take care, both of you. Maybe I'll see you at Pine Bush, Anthony.
Yes, definitely.
All right.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Remember to keep your eyes to the sky, everyone.